To order. Okay, we're going to stand up now. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Justin's going to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stay standing for a minute, please. Peter's going to do the prayer.
Lord, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
All right, well, let's see who's here.
Andy Kelsey,
Yeah.
Jeffrey Hunt,
Here.
Alan Hart,
Here.
Justin Kutu,
Here.
Richard Banks,
Here.
Amy Ortiz is absent, and Michael McPhillips.
Here,
There is a quorum on record.
thankfully. Okay. Next on the agenda is the minutes of March 27th, 2019, and June 26th, 2019. Okay. Any questions with that? Commentaries?
Mr. Chairman, I have
Yep.
corrections to the March 27th meeting.
Okay.
I'm gonna move it off the table.
You gotta motion to adopt.
Motion to accept the changes.
No, you
No
gotta move.
motion to take it off the table.
Motion to take it off the table.
I'll motion to take the minutes off the table.
Have a second?
Second.
There we go, great.
Now a motion to amend.
Okay. Motion to amend the March 27th minutes.
I'll make a motion to amend. I'll
Have a
second.
There we go.
I never took yours.
Hold on. The last 3 minutes, I lost it.
Ironic.
Better than 18.
You want mine?
Okay, no, okay, I'm sorry, right there. I'd like to bring to the attention on the first page of the minutes at the bottom, the last partial sentence, plan submitted showing the structure. To the next page, it says exact dimensions of the existing building. That's incorrect. It should say the plan submitted showing the structure with incorrect dimensions of 25 feet on the northern wall. The original plan, which was submitted in August, did not have the correct dimension.
Motion to adopt the amendment.
Wait a minute, there's more.
He's not done yet.
On the second page, third to the last paragraph, there's an omission or an addition to it. Construction was also resubmitted as revised plan, as built plans showing the block wall on the first floor, and it should make reference to the other, and corrected dimensions on northern wall. So it was the revised plan that showed the corrected dimensions. There's one other on the very last page. It starts with resident David Lombari. If you look at the end of that paragraph, I'm just going to read, we all wouldn't be here if the shed would remain in the original size of 8 foot, it should be 8 foot high with roof. The building that has been there for about 60 years, I don't want to see him take it down if he bring in the 8 foot. It should say, I don't want to see him take it down if he can bring it back to the 8 foot, meaning only a single level high. Okay, so there's a little bit, the word cane should be can, bring is the same, it, back to 8 foot.
Got that, Paul? Got it? Okay.
Motion to accept the amendments.
Motion to accept the amendment.
I'll motion to accept the
Is that a
amendment.
second?
Second.
Motion to adopt as amended.
Motion to adopt as amended.
I'll motion to adopt as amended.
Second. Okay, great. Vote?
You don't have to do a
Call,
roll
no.
call.
Okay.
You're gonna
No.
approve the June 26th minutes.
Okay.
Well,
You have any questions on those? What do we got on that?
I just think we should vote on it. We haven't voted yet.
I thought you took,
All those in favor?
Aye.
I thought you took the vote.
Ready to move on now to the petitions, or we got,
You gotta accept the June 26 minutes.
never know. Motion to accept the minutes, June 26th. Any other commentaries, questions, criticisms?
Keep jumping on it.
You probably had like 6 minutes.
A motion to-
People here.
I'll motion to accept those June 26, 2019 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Okay. Ready to move along now? Okay, great. Petitions number 7, petition number 2019-8, which is continued. Applicant Donald Elliott and Susan A. Elliott on the same premises, 52, 54, and 56 Leaf Street, plats 14 lots, 88, zone R8. Proposed use, the applicant is applying for a dimensional variance for a single lot of 28,603 square feet containing 3 residential structures under section 5.4 lot width and size yard to zoning board of review of the zoning ordinance of the town of West Warwick as amended. Go ahead, Tom.
Good evening, Thomas Cronin for the applicant. Mr. Chairman, this week I submitted a letter to the zoning board requesting that this matter be withdrawn without prejudice from the agenda, bureaucratic fatigue being the reason therefore.
Okay.
Voice vote.
Make a motion to accept
Roll
it.
call vote to accept without prejudice.
Okay,
Make a motion, we accept without prejudice the withdrawal.
I'll second.
there you go.
Roll
David
call.
Thompson,
Yes.
Alan Hart,
Yes.
Justin Kutu,
Yes.
Richard Banks,
Yes.
and Michael McDowell.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, next on the agenda, you can come up, Scott, you're in the on-deck circuit. Thank you. Okay. Petition 9, petition number 2019-9, also continued. Applicant David Simmons, owner Simmons Properties LLC, premises 0 James Street. Plat lots 10, lots 152, 153, 154, 155, 156, 157. A lot of lots. Zone CI. Proposed use. The applicant is applying for a use variance to build a single-family residential home on a commercial industrial property under section 3.85 variance to the zoning board of review of the zoning ordinance of the town of West Warwick as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I have marked as exhibits, exhibit number 1, the application, exhibit number 2, the abutters list, exhibit number 3, a 2-page radius map, exhibit number 4, the zoning certificate, exhibit number 5, the tax collector report, exhibit number 6, the residence plans, exhibit number 7, a 3-page site plan, and exhibit number 8, the green cards.
There you go.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, while we're doing exhibits, if I may hand 3 letters in support of the application to the solicitor to have him marked in sequence.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
I'll mark all 3 as exhibit number 9.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Scott Spear, representing the applicant, David Seamus. The owner of the property is Seamus Properties LLC. It's just a small limited liability company that Dave formed for the purposes of holding property on James Street. Mr. Seamus made an investment on several lots on James Street years ago. His desire was to create opportunities for his children as a place to live, as well as housings for people in the church across the street that he's very active in. If you haven't seen James Street as part of the application process or looked at it, James Street's a small stub road that is completely occupied by non-conforming uses. Every building on the street is a residential property. On both sides of the street, James Street is a demarcation between a business and commercial zone. And there's one lot left on the street. It's the very end of it. It butts up against the river. And it's a piece of property that's comprised of several old platted lots from years ago. It's vacant right now. It's flat. It's outside the flood zone. Mr. Seamus would like to build a 1,900 square foot home with a 2-car garage there for his daughter and son-in-law who are expecting another child. They presently live in some rental property that he'd like to open up for other family members. The case here for a use variance, these types of cases you don't see very often. In fact, in my 35 years, I've never recommended to a client that they file an application for a use variance because they're very difficult to obtain. I spoke with the solicitor, and he agreed with me. They're very odd cases because you have to be able to prove that the use that you can make of the property under the zoning code won't work. And in this case, the argument here is that if you put a commercial or industrial building on that site, you're going to have a very, very detrimental impact on all of the families that live on the street. It doesn't work for commercial or industrial spot because it's not a place that there's any visibility that anyone would ever see a business in there. If you did put a business on that lot in the back, it's going to create excessive traffic, it's going to create excessive lighting, it's going to create delivery trucks, customers coming to it, it's going to maybe a dumpster, all of those sorts of things that go along with a commercial use. It just doesn't make any sense. None of the people on the street want to see a commercial use at the end of the street or an industrial use there. The people that live across the street in a very nice single-family house are in favor of it. They were here last month and they were horrified when they met with me and the applicant, and we talked about why we want to put a house there, and they said, well, what else could go there other than a home? Nothing would fit. And I said, well, it's zoned for commercial or industrial uses, and they were horrified at the thought of a business going in on the last lot on a residential street. So the proposal is to build this home. There's enough land area there, if you zoned it R10, that it would be conforming with all of your dimensional regulations. In actuality, it would be a little bit better than an R10 zone because actually more space there would be more conforming in an R10 zone. We would have to go to the planning board to get a little bit of a relief on an administrative subdivision to actually separate some lot lines to create the lot. But that's basically what the case is all about. Mr. Seamus is here if anyone has any questions for him. His family members are all here, the ones that are going to enjoy the use of the property if we can convince you that a use variance is the way to go. We talked to the town planner about whether or not a zone change would be something that we could try to get on the property, and everyone said, Scott, the best route is to try to get the use variance. To do the zone change is going to be illegal because it would be a spot zoning change. It would be changing one lot in the middle of an area that wouldn't work. So this is really the only relief he has to make any beneficial use of the property.
If I might interrupt, I've had the same discussion with the town planner.
So that's it, unless you have any questions of Mr. Seamus or me.
Pete, I know you have a few questions, but I want to ask Rick if he has any questions or if Justin has any questions right off the bat. I didn't know you had any questions.
Not initially.
I know. Not initially either.
Not yet.
Fire away, Pete.
How you doing?
Good, thanks.
I have the large map in front of me. Can you grab one of those, or so I can ask some questions about it?
Are you looking at the lot layout or the house plans?
Lot layout.
Lot layout.
It's my understanding by reading the narrative and looking at the plan that I don't think that you're applying for a dimensional change or looking to put all the lots together. Is that correct? You're not looking to put all the lots together?
No, all of the lots would be merged, and then there would be a new lot line between the merged lots and the next door lot, so that all of the setbacks would be satisfied. That's something we'll have to do with the planning board.
Right, I understand the words, but the action for that, is that something that should come first?
Well,
Doesn't have to.
there would be no sense in their doing it if this were denied.
Correct. All right.
Yeah, that's the route we took. If we can't get this, we're not going to waste the money getting
Yep,
engineers to do all of that.
Understandable.
Looking at James Street, if you're going up on the east side of James Street, there are two existing buildings. Those are both single-family houses?
First one's a two-family. The one in the rear is a single family.
Okay. Looking on the opposite side of James Street now, on the east side. Starting from the top of the page per se, there's an existing building that's listed in lot number 153. Am I to understand that that's to be raised, that that's coming down?
No. You're not tearing any houses down, are you? No.
I don't think that's a house.
Oh, you mean the garage?
Dave, come on up and get sworn in
I
so
think
you
you should
can.
tell me what it is.
Could
I
you-
think
Yeah.
I think I know what it is by
Okay.
Could you
my
state,
knowledge and by my eyesight, but I'm not
could you
reading the
state your name and
application.
address, please?
David Seamus, 165 Lakehurst Ave, Coventry.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
Absolutely.
truth.
Absolutely. Do you have the big print?
So that, you're looking to keep that? Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, my knowledge, yes.
It's not a house.
Well, that's a garage.
Thank you.
That's a single garage, and that will be removed from the lot,
Removed as in taken down.
as in taken down.
So my question, if it's going to be raised, is yes.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
because it would be in the way of the setbacks.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Okay, that is not part of this plan. Am I correct, Councilman? Counselor,
I don't understand the question. We're not trying to be evasive here. I'm just trying to
I know
understand the
that, I know
question.
that.
It's not part of the application, right, Peter?
It's-
What you're saying?
It's not part of your plan to take it down. So it's caused a question.
All right, well, we can certainly stipulate to amend the plan to show that it'll be torn down. We're just looking for the use variance, and then all of these issues would be addressed with the planning board, but we're absolutely, without any problems, putting on the record that will be torn down.
Okay.
I thought you were referring to the house there when you asked if it was going to be raised.
That's my next question.
Okay, Dave, you're up.
Well, let me go, there's two buildings that seem to be connected in some way?
Yes. They're connected by a breezeway.
Breezeway,
Yeah. And they're both occupied. One's occupied by the pastor, one of the pastors of the church,
okay.
and the other is occupied by my daughter, her husband, and my grandson and future grandson.
Okay.
So that's the only thing that's coming down is the garage.
The only thing that's coming down, actually, we're gonna move it,
Okay.
but it's a shed, really. It's not a garage. Just an
I
oversized
would
shed.
say that's accurate.
But
Yeah.
the,
All right,
but the 90% of it is staying, basically. Take it like this, you're just gonna take part of it out, and taking the garage out.
Yes, that's all going. Everything else is staying.
Anything else is staying?
As far as the existing house that is in back of the house that
That we're
sits on
proposing.
Tyoke Avenue. I'm sorry?
Oh, the one that sits on Tyoke Avenue?
No, the house in back. You don't have, there are no setbacks that are mentioned from that second house
Within a second house.
back to the point where you're looking to build your new home. I may have missed it, but I
Yeah,
don't see.
it shows a
I don't see
20-foot
any
setback.
setbacks to say where this new house is gonna go in relation to that second house that you do not want to, that you're not going to take down. I understand that, but I don't see any setbacks.
It shows, I don't know if it shows it on your print. It should show it on the print, but there's a
On-
20,
On that point, if the house were to be built, if the board gave permission and the house were to be built, and a setback were violated, they would not get the building permit. I think when they come in and don't mention any setback relief being required, the board can make the assumption that none is required. If you grant it and they do violate it, then it's upstairs going to stop it. So when you're granting, you are in effect saying, we grant with no setback relief. That's, I think, in the nature of your decision.
But with the, well, Pete, one second, okay? Pete,
Yeah.
have the floor for a second, just for a
Yeah,
second.
yeah.
Go back to you again when you're ready. From the end of the, I call it the first house, the
Right.
pink one, right?
yeah,
Right. You would have all the setbacks you need, basically,
Correct.
to build the house, right?
yes, absolutely.
Okay. So that wouldn't be an issue.
No,
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
You may have something on here. Unfortunately, I can't read it, but maybe you guys can. On the second drawing, the wording is not legible. It's this drawing here, where it may show a setback of 20 feet. I can't read, but whatever is in here is ineligible.
From what I think, it's 20 feet
It looks like 20.
from the existing,
From that second.
from that second existing building in, I can't find the lot number.
Is the width of the house 34 feet and the garage 24?
Yes.
So that's what those are, right? So to answer my question, it's 20-foot setback.
Yes. 30-foot rear setback.
30-foot rear, and then
Yeah.
30 foot on the adjacent side.
This building is remaining, right?
On the property,
Yeah, that's remaining.
let's see, lot number 173. It's not where the house is gonna be built. It's not on the front buildings. It's to the left. It's to the west side of where the house is gonna get built, lot number 173. Do you own that lot now?
Yes.
That lot is also zoned commercial.
Yes.
Do you have future plans for it?
No.
That's not part of the application.
I understand
Okay,
that.
okay, okay.
Part of
Yep,
the
sorry.
application that I'm
Thinking of this.
very much in favor of granting lies on what you're going to do with the property that borders it. It's your property. It's now zoned also commercial. I see an issue of it that you're not taking steps with it now.
Correct. You're getting that, excuse me.
I'm getting at.
What's the point here?
What would be the issue?
We're looking for a variance
Yep.
from
Yeah.
commercial to
industrial.
residential.
Commercial, yes,
But the
absolutely.
property that abuts that property still remains commercial, that this gentleman owns. In my opinion, there needs to be either an application, you can see like the whole block here.
Mhm. Yep.
It's nice that he included the piece of land I'm talking about in this block. Did you include that for some reason?
So this is all owned by Seamus Properties, so that's why I included it.
I understand that. Are they looking for application for the other property?
No, that's,
No.
they're strictly asking you to act on this particular piece of property.
Right.
I mean, the fact that they own the other one, that's got nothing to do with this one. I mean, you can't ask
All right,
for a future.
Let me go a
Can't
step
put
further.
the cart before the horse.
No, I can't
If
demand
they,
it.
if they come in at a later date for something, you have the option to act at that time on that
That
something
property.
Yeah, well, it's
they're
acting
coming
on
in for.
the
Potential that that could.
petition
Let me
before.
ask you another question. Lot 171,
Yes.
you own that property also?
171 is,
There's an existing driveway and there's an existing building on it. I think you're on the
on,
Simus Properties, correct?
yep. I own it if it says Seamus Properties, yes.
Okay, and that's also zoned commercial.
Yes,
So you're asking us to give a variance for a very good reason to have this single-family home.
right.
But we as
We're pretty narrow purview sometimes.
Officials for the town of West Warwick and for their citizens need to, in fact, somewhat if not guaranteed, that because you are looking for a change of use for this commercial property, that it's also going to be for these other two properties that you own. And what you're saying by your narrative and by the narrative of your counselor, that it doesn't work as a commercial property. So I would think that the natural thing to do, rather than a board, you're asking a board to only change one and leave the other two, that's not protecting the people that will own this property, if it's yourself or your family or whoever it is. We're not just looking to protect your family, we're looking to protect whoever's gonna own that in the future. I would be very, very much in approval of giving you a grant of changing all three areas to residential. That would make much more sense to me.
Peter, if I may, they're not changing
the application, Peter.
the zone,
I understand that. They're looking for a variance.
Right.
They're right.
but
I'm not looking to change the zone. The zoning is going through the town
The-
council. That's not gonna happen.
the problem is
Right.
that if they have no plans for any of the other lots at this time, they can't come before you and ask for any relief and say, but we don't have any plans for them. They have to come before you, like they are here, and saying, here are our plans for this lot.
Peter, the purview is
The
very.
lot back there, they can't
Purview is
come
very
in.
small here.
I understand it.
The narrative
I'm not
is
sure
very
that I
small.
agree with you. I think if I own a piece of land, if I own a commercial piece of land, like this gentleman does, and I wanna change all of it from commercial to residential, I come in with a request for all of it.
But
I don't need to tell you what type of houses I'm gonna put on it. It's gonna be residential.
if you were going, I would agree with you if you were going for a zone change. But for them to come in and seek a use variance, which the council has stated is a very difficult thing to get, they have to be very specific and show that there is no other use of this property than we want to make. Well, what do you want to make of that use? They have to be able, in this particular instance, to tell you, this is the use we want to make of it. If they don't have a use, you can't grant them a use variance.
Yeah, Pete, you put the cart before the horse, and I have a question.
All right,
I-
I'm not done yet. On this other piece of land, lot number 173,
Yes.
existing building, you have raised down there. You have
Yes.
intent to take that building down.
The building is not there.
The building,
I took that down 10 years ago.
you took it down.
Yes,
Did you have a purpose of taking it down?
yes. It was,
If you
it
don't
was,
mind.
it was in bad condition.
Okay.
And it was an eyesore to the community.
Was it a commercial piece of
Yes.
land? a
It
property?
was it was the old florist that was on
Okay.
that street.
Okay, oh, really?
Yeah. So I raised that building
Yeah.
for safety purposes.
Okay. Good.
So it's just a flat piece of land now.
I understand. But if you look at the wording, and the narratives are in there, I think Al provided a narrative with some very specific guidelines, because this isn't done regularly.
Yes, it's very unusual.
Because of
Yes.
that irregular usage, you have to be sure that it's going to be used as residential land in the future. And when you have, even the block that he has here, he has got one of it, he wants a request for a variance from commercial to residential. I don't understand why
And he comes
he's
back,
not doing the whole thing. I have a problem with
The-
that.
Peter, but he's only looking, he's looking for the area that he's looking for. That's what the petition is, not the whole land lot.
I
Okay.
understand that, again, I understand what's in the application. I don't agree with the application being what it is.
Well, that's
Because
a-
it does
that's a-
not protect the people that may own that in the future unless this board,
But you're talking 10, 15, 20 years down the road.
you don't know if it's that, they could turn around and have and then put a.
But to your
If-
point, Peter, there's
the
access
answer,
from
Peter,
Tyoke Avenue to that
The
property.
answer, Peter, would be, with that concern, then the board would have to deny this application. I don't know how to explain, he can't come to you and say, I want a use variance, but I don't know how I'm gonna use it. He's coming to you and he's saying, I want a use variance, and this is what I'm gonna do. I don't know how I'm gonna do that other lot.
Why don't we ask the gentleman what he's gonna use it for? You
Well,
took the
it-
building down
yeah.
10 years ago.
He doesn't know what he's gonna use it for.
Okay.
It's a vacant piece of land, he's owned it for several years. I would like to make a couple of distinctions, because I understand and I appreciate where you're coming from. The use of the property next door for commercial purposes under the zoning code is really not a problem. Any use in the zoning code that's applicable for that property can go on that property, and it's not gonna have any of the conflicting uses that the lot at the end of James Street's gonna have. James Street's a dead end. The people that live on that street will not be impacted by properties next door to them. I mean, they can see them through their backyards, but that is just a risk that someone takes owning property on James Street that happens to be oddly zoned, all pre-existing lawful non-conforming uses. It's just a fact of life. But to ask the applicant to make a decision today on what he would like to do with property in the future and ask that it be rezoned is really an unfair question for him. It may be in his best interest to have it rezoned residential. It may be worth a lot more money than commercial, looking at what's available with commercial properties over there. But that's not the question before you, and it's not the reason that he's here. He's here for the specific reason of trying to build a house. When he realizes that he can't build the house and needs zoning relief, he's demonstrating that he can put the house on there, make it conforming with all of the zoning, and wonderfully, it fits perfectly with all of the surrounding uses as a residential zone. And we've elected the R10 zone. We've asked it to be zoned R10. I don't know what the zoning would be on the next door if we wanted to do something with it, because he doesn't know what he wants to do with it.
Okay. Dave, I have a question. When was the last, in that lot, when was the last time that there was a commercial building that was in there? Like 10 years ago, it was a flower place, right?
It was a flower shop.
And about 10 years ago, did it either A, go out of business, or,
I bought the property, well, it's longer than that. I bought the property, it remained unoccupied,
okay,
and it was in dire straits when I bought it,
okay.
and it was becoming a hazard, so I tore it down. That was, it was unsightly.
I understand. But have there been other?
And we have the church across the street, I don't want,
I understand. Have there been any other businesses in that?
no,
Okay.
no.
And how long? 10, 15, 20 years?
Since I've owned it, which is,
How long have you owned it?
I don't know,
Give or take a year.
15, 20
Okay,
years.
give or take a year or two.
How about 5?
No, a little more than that.
I have a quick question. So I got some conflicting numbers on the two blueprints. One set of blueprints shows the width of the house at 48 feet. And then on this print, house and garage. And then on this print, it shows a total of 58 square feet. So you got, looks like two separate buildings at 34. Like I said, the typing on there is pretty hard to see and differentiate on what it's actually saying, but you have 34 feet and 24 feet with a total of 58 feet. And then on the printout here for the house, it's a total of 48 feet.
Yeah, I think we were looking at 2 different plans at the time. Are you on the Beechwood?
Beechwood first floor plan, yeah, because
Yes.
that's gonna be your, obviously your,
48,
correct.
yes.
And then,
36 on the width.
all right, so you got, and then, so that's different as well on the other plan.
Yes, we were in between 2 different plans. We weren't sure what we were gonna build there yet. And whether it's gonna be prefab or not, that's all in their dimensions, but that would go,
So which one of these are gonna be the more correct, plans to look at, the, 58 by 25, say 27?
The reality is that whichever plan he went with,
Okay.
it has to conform to the zoning setbacks. So if he decided to use a third plan, when he goes to the planning board, that's neither of these two, that's off a little bit from these two, it has to conform. So that's the whole nature of the relief, conforming R10 zone for the house in there. But I apologize for the confusion over the numbers.
Alan,
Trying to.
Yeah, nothing right now.
Excuse me, I have a question. How many units are in the two houses that are in the front? The one on Tayo,
Is-
two units?
Yeah, there's a single family, and they're both single families, yeah,
With both single families, okay.
right. Well, it's attached, it's an attached house.
Right.
So I guess you would call it an apartment.
I'd like to make sure you two are talking about the same house here. As I'm listening to the questions and his answer, I'm not sure that both of you are on the same page on which house you're talking
We're on
about.
the
so-
same page.
that was what's already existing,
Okay.
the pink one.
51A and B is what you're talking about, correct?
Going in on James Street, the house on the right or on the left?
I would say the left,
Left? Left. Okay, is that the one you were referring to?
Yes.
Okay, thank
the
you.
pink house.
51A and
I
B.
call it the pink house.
So 51 being the address, A being the front house, B being the back house.
Could you speak to the steps or the research you've done that pretty much ruled out any other uses for that land?
If you look at the table of uses in your zoning ordinance that would tell you all of the allowable uses on that site, there's a litany of them.
Right.
You could put a barber shop in there, a tanning salon, you could put a tax preparation office, you could put in something that's heavier, you could put in a store, you could give even more intense uses. It's without question that you could put a use in there. The question is whether it makes sense from a zoning and land use standpoint. And I think, and the pitch here is that any type of use like that, A, is unproductive because it doesn't have any access and frontage on a street. It's going to require signage that would be unsightly. It would generate more traffic than a single-family house would. It would have a dumpster, it would have exterior lighting, it would have advertising, it would have delivery trucks. All of those associated things that go along with a commercial use would be at the end of a dead-end street, passing by all of the houses. And I don't think there's any value to the lot as a commercial lot. I think it's been deprived of all beneficial use, and I think that the house is the only logical use of the property. I think it's consistent with the surrounding properties. This isn't being driven by a desire to reach financial gain. It's not the result of any hardship that the imposed by the applicant. It's just a logical planning move that you don't see that often.
If I might pick up on something, in my memo to you, I tried to make reference to a beneficial use. Theoretically, you could put something there. The question in this, I think, depending on how the zoning board feels, is that I think under normal circumstances, and I'll use an example. Several years ago, there had been a gas station on Providence Street up in the Brookfield Hills area, and they came in for a use variance for a convenience store. Well, it'd been a gas station forever. That was a beneficial use. I think here, the question before the zoning board is, even though there are uses that can be placed there, the zoning board's decision, is it a beneficial use? So I think that's, if the zoning board makes the decision that a barber shop could go there and it would be beneficial, then the zoning board has to deny the application. If the zoning board looks at the commercial industrial permitted uses, as my brother just said, then, and says, none of these are beneficial, then the zoning board has the authority to grant it. I'm not in any way trying to influence you, I'm just trying to give you the distinction you've got in this unusual case.
Very unusual.
The other thing that somewhat complicates this for me is that, as it stands, one, two, three, four, five, is it 6 separate lots?
Seven.
Which, 7?
The problem is,
Six, I'm sorry, 6.
6.
Alan, the problem he's faced with
Right.
there is what's mentioned, that
As they stand alone, individually, yeah, I can see that there would be no real beneficial use that you can get out of those
Right.
lots as 6.
And I agree, with the problem, he was on the horns of a dilemma, and I discussed this with the town planner on this particular matter, to say, go through the planning session, getting them all merged, coming down here and saying, the board saying, no, we won't grant it. It's an unusual situation all around, but I think that the town planner's advice to them about, go down there and see if you get it. If he comes down here and you grant it, that doesn't mean that it's still gonna follow through, that it's gonna go forward. If they don't get merged, if the building official has, or he's in a position where he's gotta start with, okay, if all the other pieces fall in place, you're gonna get it. Other pieces that are not yours to decide.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
if I can ask again, I'm sorry if I'm being redundant. On your plan, can you tell me what the intent is of this large block? On both the James Street properties and on the property that you've raised the building 10 years ago? What is this large block? What does that indicate to us from you? What's the purpose of this being on this map?
To show you the property.
Other than the obvious, does it mean that you have an intent? Again, you're bringing this to us. You're asking us to look at all these facts. You're telling me that you knocked down the building 10 years ago. I agree with you that is probably the only and the best use of the property on James Street. I totally agree with that. I have a problem. I truly have a problem when it's our responsibility to do the right thing for the land, for the future owners of the property, so that we don't have a problem. Lot number 173, you're including it in this by this block of land.
Could I have?
No, let me finish my question. You're including this by the block of land.
He included lot 448, he included a lot of other lots too.
Yeah, if I,
Yes, he did, and you own all of it. And I agree that the intent and the use, the probability of use for where you want to build a house for commercial is nil, none, 0. I would further agree that you have that same probability of the lot next to it.
if I could I have that exhibit in front of you? And I will examine Mr. Seamus and we'll try to put a stake through the heart of this issue. Mr. Seamus, I am holding up the plan in front of you called Existing Conditions Plan at Tioga Avenue, James Street. Are you familiar with that plan?
Yes.
Who prepared that plan for you?
That was prepared by Dupree Engineering.
And when was that prepared?
2007, I believe?
So it was prepared in 2007, long before the application was filed for the zone change.
Correct.
What was your purposes of submitting this to the zoning board with your application?
To show them the property and what we would like to do with the property.
So this was done years ago, but submitted to the zoning board just for informational purposes, to try to be as forthcoming as you could about all of the surrounding areas and all of the existing uses in the area.
Correct.
And you thought that would be beneficial for the zoning board to have a clear and accurate understanding of the surrounding areas and all of the uses that existed back in 2007.
Correct.
You didn't have any intention to file this plan with any major development concepts or any ideas for development in the future.
No.
There's nothing about this plan which suggests that you want to use the property behind the lot in question for development purposes.
No.
You're not hiding anything from the zoning board about any ulterior motives or any other type of zoning that you have planned or intend to file in the near future as a result of any type of grant that the zoning board will give you tonight?
No.
So we now know that this plan is 12 years old.
It says it right on the plan, it's 2007.
June 2007, thank you.
No further questions
At this time?
at this time.
Peter, any other questions?
Nope.
I hear no. Okay.
Anyone in support?
You have any supporters, abutters, any other commentators want to come up and,
We'd have the family members all come up. They're all in support. We'll save time.
okay,
Any objectors?
okay, that's good.
Close the public hearing.
Make a motion, we close the public meeting.
I'll second it. All
Vote.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nice have it. Now we have our own discussion.
Gotta make a motion to approve.
You want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Petition 2019-9, the application for use variance, applicant David Seamus, owner of Seamus Properties LLC's, James Street, West Warwick, Rhode Island, plat 10, lots 152, 153, 154, 155, 156, 157. The applicant seeking a use variance to build a single-family residential unit in a commercial industrial zone. Make a motion that we approve.
Second?
Second. Okay. Discussion? Okay, after much discussion.
The only thing I would say in part of the discussion, I'm glad that you made that clarification. It would have been better. That we wouldn't have spent much time on it. I'm sorry that I didn't see the year on it. I probably would have asked that first.
I understand. Your questions were all legitimate to me, and I appreciate zoning board and planning board members that make the effort that you do to analyze things carefully. It's a compliment to the way you do your business.
I'm not used to being quiet.
Roll call vote.
I know what's next. Roll call vote.
Peter Kelsey,
I abstain.
Alan Hart,
Yes.
Justin Kutcher,
Yes.
Richard Bank,
Yes.
Michael McPhillips,
Yes.
Peter, did you abstain?
I did.
Abstained, yeah. Motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate all your time.
Abstain, please, so that everyone could hear it and see it. I just don't, you know what
All right, next petition, moving right along. Petition 11, petition number 2019-10, continued, applicant. Pure Vita Labs LLC, I have it right, got the right name, Pure Vita?
Sounds good to me, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
good. Owner, Exit 8 RE LLC. Premises 153 James P. Murphy Highway. Lots 12, lot 765, zone RBP. Proposed use, the applicant is applying for a special use permit for a medical laboratory analytical testing laboratory for state mandated regulatory testing of hemp and cannabis sold at Compassion Center. Under section medical lab and BP zone is Y/S and Article 5, 5.6.20.6. Requires, whatever that word is, for use less than 50,000 square feet of occupied floor area to zoning board of review of the zoning ordinance of the town of West Warwick as amended. Fire away, Tom, this should be interesting.
Mr. Chairman, I have marked as exhibits number 1, the application, number 2, the project narrative, number 3, the tax assessor information, number 4, the abutters list, number 5, the radius map, number 6, the site plan, number 7, the Department of Health regulations, and number 8, the green cards.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I often feel that I don't have much left to say after your introductions, but I'll probably tread
That's a good
over
thing.
a few of the same areas. I have with me tonight Jason Iannaccilli and Stuart Potter, members of Pure Vita LLC. They'll offer some testimony, we'll swear them in. So 153 James P. Highway, Murphy, Zone Business Park. I'll state affirmatively that we noticed the entire business park as required. It's always a question in these things. This is an application for a special use permit. The proposed use of a medical laboratory in a business park with less than 50,000 square feet. Over 50,000 square feet is an allowed use. The building itself sits on just over an acre of land, and it has about 6,850 square feet of area. There is a large telecommunications tower behind the
Right in the
building.
back of it.
It dwarfs the building. I could not mention it, right? The telecommunications tower will remain and will remain in use, but it will not interfere with the operations that we're proposing in any way. The inside of the building, excuse me, I should start by saying the exterior of the building will remain as is. No additions, subtractions, stay the same. It's right next to the Culligan Water Building, just to give everyone a landmark. You can get kind of turned around in the business park there. You can see the building from 95 south. The building itself is divided into garage, office, and commercial space. The access is on a paved driveway from James P. Murphy Highway. All the utilities are available from that public street. No dimensional variances are required. This is strictly special use permit. As Mr. Chairman noted, the proposed use is for an analytical laboratory for testing medical marijuana as defined by the Rhode Island Department of Health. I included the Department of Health regulations in our application because we don't have a lot of discretion. We have to follow, this is, normally I stand up here and say, we're going to do whatever the DEM says we're going to do. In this case, we're going to do whatever the Department of Health tells us to do. So I included those for your reference. One of the requirements for obtaining this license from the Department of Health is evidence of a physical location that's in compliance with the zoning ordinances of the town where it's located. So we've made an initial application to the state. We've indicated that this 153 James P. Murphy Highway is a physical location that complies with their ordinances. And we're seeking approval under the form of the special use permit to affirm to them that we have the zoning blessing of the town of West Warwick. I don't know of a building in the business park that has more than 50,000 square feet, maybe other than the hotel or the,
All kinds.
my Camp Bow Wow. That's a pretty good sized building up there. But so we're here because it's less than 50,000 square feet. The zoning ordinance does have a category entitled medical marijuana. It includes 4 uses that are included in the state regs and in the Department of Business Regulation. It does not include the analytical testing laboratory category. So we went with the medical laboratory testing after conferring with the staff. The medical marijuana ordinance of the town of West Warwick does consider and allow cultivation and distribution in limited amounts in the business park. And the amounts of marijuana, as you'll hear from my clients, that we are talking about are far less than those amounts. The building is attractive to us, as I mentioned, because of the Department of Health regulations. It has the fence, it has security cameras, it has alarmed locked doors, it has a garage where we can pull in. We're not going to be unloading the product to be tested outside the building. So all those things already exist and are making it an attractive place for us to do business. It doesn't seem like it would have much impact on the business park. It'll have a lab director, Mr. Potter, 4 employees to start, limited capacity to start. There's not going to be any increased traffic, change in lighting, noise, any of the things that we usually discuss. So with that, I'm going to ask Dr. Iannaccilli to come forward and just give you a little background on the analytical testing market. It is a business, I should say, right? This is not something we're doing for the state of Rhode Island, right? This is for business. And he's going to describe that business model for you. And Mr. Potter's here to answer any technical questions you might have about the laboratory.
Could you state your name and profession, please?
Jason Inicelli, 5 Full Circle East Greenwich.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Thanks for that introduction. It was pretty extensive, but I'd look to just give you guys a little bit of background on the current state of affairs as they stand here in Rhode Island. Many of you may be aware that, you know, the marijuana legalization movement in this country is picking up exponential speed. It is not, you know, a uncommon problem nowadays that the actual substances that are being packaged, the content and you know, purity of those products have been in question in several other state markets throughout the country. So here in Rhode Island, the governor just announced her plans to expand the marijuana space to include more growth on the medicinal side, with the approval of 6 new dispensaries in addition to the current 3 that we have in operation presently. She also announced intent earlier this year to introduce a bill in favor of legalization for adult use. All of those factors combined create a potentially dangerous situation in the state of Rhode Island. As a practicing physician, I deal with oncology patients on a regular basis. I perform minimally invasive cancer treatments, mainly in liver and kidney. I have seen firsthand some of the negative effects of lack of guidance. When patients are granted a medicinal marijuana card, there isn't much in the way of advice on which particular products may be most suited for their symptoms. In addition, we also know now that greater than 80% of all legal products available on state markets nationally are mislabeled. In Rhode Island currently, the only testing that is occurring is being performed by the cultivators, the people that are growing these products and sending them to market. So you can understand there where there may be some bias in a rush to get these products to market. They are not testing for or reporting any harmful byproducts that may be present in these products as a result of the production process. Those include microbial contaminants, as well as harmful chemicals that could be introduced in extraction procedures. So as a result of the experience that I have had in clinical practice over the last 3 years, myself and one of my co-partners, Jonathan Martin, who couldn't be here tonight, who is a primary care physician, have noted that we are actually faced with a potential problem here in the state. We started doing research on other cannabis markets throughout the country, state-specific, identifying the problems that have arisen there, and we have been working closely with the Department of Health and the DBR regarding the existing regulations as they are written now. So you may be aware that the regulations for appropriate testing and labeling of medical marijuana products here in Rhode Island were recently released. They were approved and released. They have not yet taken effect. Earlier this year, I believe it was in January that they were released. The regulations are not going to be enforced until we have sufficient capacity in the secondary services sector, in the testing sector, to not cause a bottleneck in getting these products to the medicinal market. Our sort of introduction to this space will actually put the state at capacity to start testing almost immediately as soon as we open our doors. So part of our issue has been identifying a site that is appropriate for the use that we intend, that has a lot of the necessary elements that are fairly strict criteria for security and layout that would allow us to perform these operations safely. As Tom had mentioned, we're actually in a position now where this existing building actually does have a lot of those things already in place. So it has a perimeter fence. It's got security cameras already in place. The layout itself would require minimal build out for us to actually outfit that space to meet all the criteria as established by the Department of Health for a medicinal cannabis lab. So prior to actually applying for a license, you know, we need to identify a space and have it appropriately zoned for the state to even consider an application. And that's sort of why we're here today. Stuart Proctor is one of the 3 co-founders of Pure Vita Labs. He's our PhD analytical chemist that will be serving as lab director. Stuart can tell you a little bit more about, the amount of product that we're going to be handling at any given time. I will emphasize, as previously stated, that we will have anywhere from 5 to 10 employees at this business, so there won't be a lot of traffic, coming and going throughout the course of the day. We will not be directly receiving any sort of product samples from customers or clients themselves. The way that the regulations are written, there is a dedicated individual that is an employee of our company that drives a secure vehicle to the site where the products are being cultivated. They do appropriate sampling and then transport those representative samples in a locked safe inside of our vehicle directly to our facility within the perimeter. There are also regulations for how these products are handled at intake, with sort of strict policies on how they're sort of tabulated and recorded with lot numbers and so on and so forth. So I'm going to actually have Stuart step up and say a few words about just to answer any questions that you might have as well about our process and to sort of better explain how our operation would work, to let you guys know what we're all about and that we're not really introducing any sort of environmental hazard or disrupting any commerce currently going on in the office park.
Could you state your name, please?
Stuart Proctor.
Proctor?
It's actually ER.
Yeah. And your address?
It's 80 Fisher Road, Unit 73, Cumberland, Rhode Island.
Your profession?
I'm an analytical chemist.
And would you raise your right hand?
Sure.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Thank you.
So just to elaborate a little bit on what my colleague Jason was saying, the regulations have actually been published and there's very little leeway in what we can actually do there, but the main focus is the seat of sale, safety for citizens, and to make sure that what's being brought to market is actually not just analytically correct, but also doesn't contain toxins like heavy metals, pesticides, such things that aren't actually physically being tested for right now. That seat to sale process, as Jason described, means that there's going to be no physical public throughput at the place, at the establishment. We're going to physically go out to each of these locations, selectively sample and document and record exactly how we test or sample the product. That's all going to be documented and stored for public records for later use. And it's really a very, very small analytical laboratory. Analytical labs are all over the place. You have these in the back of doctors right now doing things, the same sort of tests that we would do. Obviously, we'll be looking at very small plant material product. A typical test would take about 1 or 2 grams. So as I'm sure you can imagine, we're not going to have very much product on site at any one time. I mean, that's a very, very brief overview. I mean, the physical chemistry, I could bore you to death with that. So.
That's quite all right.
Stuart, would you just explain to them the storage of the marijuana on site and the ultimate disposition of the marijuana after testing?
Absolutely. So in order to keep the cannabinoids stable and the terpenes, we need to put them in a freezer. So we'll be keeping them at minus 80 degrees Celsius whilst we're not testing them. Quite frankly, most of the product we bring on site will actually be unusable by the time you've homogenized and extracted what you want to physically test. That process denatures pretty much anything that could be used. Anything that would be left in terms of plant material, you have to mix with soil, and essentially you then send it off for disposal elsewhere. So there's no physical usable product left by the end of the process.
What degrees Celsius did you say?
80 degrees Celsius, minus 80. Unfortunately, I don't speak Fahrenheit, so I have no idea what that is in American.
Yeah. We speak Fahrenheit, the rest of the world speaks Celsius.
Yes, it's very cold. How about that?
Yeah, minus 80, okay. Yep, that would be very cool.
So we don't have any further presentation. If the board has any questions for any one of us.
You have clean rooms?
Yes, so there will be 3 sections essentially. There's a microbiological testing, as Jason alluded to, looking at microbes. So that will be a clean room. Yep. The heavy metals testing for things like lead, cadmium, copper, arsenic, chromium, all of those are trace elements which are in the atmosphere. So we will need to keep that room towards the back of the establishment and away from any vehicle fumes which have lead. The other major component is liquid chromatography, and that's just a standard laboratory you have anywhere. So Yeah, there's just standard laboratory clean room, nothing very exciting. Unless you find clean rooms exciting.
When you're finished with the analyzation, is the product going to is the end product going to the Jefferson Boulevard? No, okay, gotcha.
So we send
Okay.
a label to.
Yeah, no, I
Later.
would just quickly.
Yep.
The sample generates the report.
Okay.
That then the information in the report gets put on the product label. With our seal that it has been tested, it's free from contaminants and microbial pathogens. The product itself remains at the facility. So the way that the regulations are written, we go sample the product on site. I mean, naturally, there isn't a single cultivator out there that wants to hand over product in bulk to a third party and then trust that we're going to be able to guard it and secure it. You know, so it's just a small representative sample. The product goes directly from cultivator to dispensary once we have the written report of approval.
You're pretty secluded up there, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know we want the
Which is the way
industrial,
we
but
like.
that's pretty secluded up there.
Couple of coyotes.
Yeah, might get some animals, might not see too many people up there.
Well, that's good.
I have
The
a
good
couple
news
of
is
quick
that-
questions.
Fire away.
You have 3 members of the board that are within a 5-iron of your facility.
It's true.
So
That's true.
These are the questions for the 3 of us. You mentioned there are 3 sites now that are selling marijuana in Rhode Island.
Yes, free dispensaries, correct.
3
Compassion
dispensaries.
centers.
Compassion
Centers,
centers,
right?
yes.
Compassion centers. Which one of them is in?
Am I correct that I heard there is no testing right now?
You are correct. Well, they do their own testing. So right now they have their own equipment.
But there's no one doing the job that you're looking to provide for
Absolutely
the
not, no.
industry?
Not right now, there is not, no.
So
Are
you'd be
there,
the
are
first
there
one.
other companies that are in the state also looking to do this?
They just increased, the legislature increased, allowing 6 more compassion centers
Centers, I
that are going
understand.
out for bid.
But I-
So in other
I'm
states, are
testing.
there other?
Correct, there is potentially another company that we're aware of that is looking to do this work too.
Okay, so are you in competition with them, or are you already in contract?
No, we would technically be competition to that company, correct, but
Okay.
ultimately we're both here for the public, and they wouldn't allow the regulations to start testing with one lab anyway. You have to have at least 2 for the regulatory bodies to be satisfied, because they need to be impartial, because of course if everyone had to come to us, we would like that, of course. But realistically, they're looking for 2, possibly 3, is what they want long term, but they need at least 1 or 2 to get the ball rolling.
Nothing wrong with being first.
No.
Well,
Are they looking
you know, again, it is in response to the
Yeah.
actual consumers, the patients that have demanded. Sorry.
Correct.
I would say it's long overdue.
Exactly. I did want to add one point. The only existing potential competitor is an analytical laboratory that is also doing soil testing. So they have other things that they are testing, and, you know, the whole point of you know, these regulations and them being sort of not enforced until there is capacity is to avoid that bottleneck. We don't want the medicinal patients to be without, you know, their medications. However, you know, we want to make sure that everything is being done safely and that we're not letting faulty product get to market.
I just have one other question. I noticed that there are 29 solvents listed. I hope they all work well together.
That's where you come in.
That's
That's where
your
you come
job.
in.
Now, my ending comment is that you have gases that are going to be used for analytical testing in the facility are inert and non-flammable. How are these gases released?
So, well, helium is going to be the primary gas, and as I'm sure you're aware, that's a noble gas. Helium, H2.
Helium.
It's very, very unreactive. It doesn't really do anything a lot. It's
Did you say helium?
helium, He.
Okay.
Yeah, helium, like in a balloon.
Yeah, I got you. All right.
Yes. So ultimately, that's going to be the primary source. There's also argon, which again is another noble gas.
You don't have to tell me all. I'm just interested in the 29.
Right.
Of course, these are all standard. Every lab you go to has these.
That's why you're gonna be in a secluded area.
So non-flammable and inert are words that I like.
So I mean,
Within that 5 iron distance.
Right, from, Thank God the fire department's only about a mile away.
Yeah, so,
Just in
so
case.
just as another point of background information on Stewart, Stewart is actually one of the rare specialty trained chemists that deals with analytical testing, you know, on a worldwide basis, really. So we're pretty fortunate to have him as part of our group. If there was anyone that was going to be able to answer any questions about the processes involved, this would be the guy, you know. So I think that, you know, we can do this in a way where it's extremely safe, that it's, you know, and we're doing the job that we set out to do to make sure that these products are actually safe for patients in Rhode Island and eventually for, you know, adult use when it becomes recreationalized.
Are they looking to put one in the northern part of the state and one over on the bay? As the three, kind of centralized?
You mean the labs?
Yeah, yes.
The state has not specified location, you know, and to be quite honest, because the labs themselves will send the samplers out to retrieve the product, it sort of makes it irrelevant to the cultivators. You know, someone is coming to their facility and they're getting the product, they're transporting it themselves.
That's not really an issue.
It's not an issue, you know, but obviously West Warwick being somewhat central is an ideal location.
Exactly the point. What is an issue is that you're in competition. You want to be in the middle of Rhode Island, but guess where West Warwick is?
Yeah.
Right in the middle of Rhode Island.
Yeah, this building on J.P. Murphy Highway is an ideal site. It would actually facilitate us getting up and running in a timely fashion, and I think that is where the state right now is feeling the most pressure.
Are you, is the location looking just for 8 to 4? Just a one-shift situation, or are you gonna have to?
Normal
because
business
Normal
hours.
business?
Yeah.
Okay, like you wouldn't
No
be
one
having to
coming
pick
and
stuff up
going
at
in the
6
middle of the
o'clock at
night.
And going at like 8 o'clock at night and stuff?
No.
Okay.
Nope, not for any purpose of testing. I mean, if anything, it would be, hey, we forgot a document at the
Yeah,
office,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
it's-
you guys would run in there.
Right, and there's also, you know, web-based security cameras, so we'd have access to those in our own homes, and, you know, so everything is under surveillance. It's pretty strict.
Yeah, it's
These
heavily
surveillance is all
regulated.
governed by the regulations in the statute.
Exactly, yep.
Now, my understanding is marijuana is still illegal at the federal level?
Yes.
Okay. And how many cultivators do you plan to be testing or supporting? Do you have a number there?
Well, you know, right now, of the big three, you know, 65% of the testing market is the Slater Compassion Center. So, you know, that would probably be
Are
one
they
of
the
our.
grower or?
Yes, so they cultivate and sell.
Okay.
So you can see where there may be a little bit of a conflict of interest there when you're doing your own independent testing as well. So hence the need for the regulations, but, you know, they need to be enforced. You know, right now they're just out there. They know they're coming, but because there aren't enough, you know, labs to meet capacity in the state, they're, you know, we're sort of at a standstill.
And are you also testing for potency in addition to?
Yes.
Bad
So
things you mentioned?
content, potency, free from contaminant or hazardous materials, and free from any microbes that would be, you know, potentially infectious agents.
And is your market Rhode Island only?
Yes, we cannot do commerce across state lines,
Okay.
you know, not until anything gets legalized on a federal level.
And by the way, I would disagree that recreational marijuana is a done deal.
Oh,
As
I'm
we
not saying
saw,
that.
It didn't get any traction in Rhode Island this year, and it was rejected in both New York and New Jersey, so.
Yeah.
I think that we're seeing a lot of, you know, a lot of bad
Pushback.
things that
Yeah.
are happening in Colorado, Oregon, Washington, the states that have adopted
Right.
recreational marijuana.
Due to the way that those states have implemented the project, quite frankly, they've not done it very well, and that's one of the differences.
Well, I think it just has to do with the product itself. It's not a safe product.
Sure.
So in the point in mentioning that about, you know, the governor's announcement about making it recreational legally for adults, is just the potential for further growth of the market. Now, we know that the medicinal market is expanding. It's already in the process of doing that with the addition of 6 approved dispensaries. We're going to triple the existing market capacity. So, you know, there is a need for the service.
They also have the situation of the cultivators that have to go sell to the compassion centers, which doesn't make sense to me, but.
Yeah, and many of the cultivators are the compassion centers.
Yeah.
You know, the way that the laws are
Well,
currently written.
I'm talking about they call them the cooperative cultivators.
Oh, the
that are
co-ops, yes.
complaining- They are complaining that they've been authorized to grow, but their only market is the compassion centers. They're not allowed to sell out on the,
What type of employees would you guys be looking for?
School chemists.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Primarily, of course, when you're gonna need information technology people
Yeah.
and then
Right.
an operations manager, but the
They'd be pretty high-paying jobs too, right? I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. I mean,
I mean,
they're
everybody has a
specialized jobs.
definition of that, but that's,
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, our pros, we want to make sure we treat our employees correctly. There's you know, the way you get a business going is by treating people right and making sure they do their job properly.
Yeah, no.
sure, no, some clients,
Yeah, no.
okay. You all talked out?
I'm good.
Okay.
I made up my mind before I came.
Okay. I mean, it's, maybe you wanna read it off then?
Just wasn't worried about that flammable.
Absolutely. The helium. Absolutely. That helium
You
balloon.
probably need a driver to get to my house, but
I think I'm the closest.
Thank you. I'm pretty close to, over here.
Alan's the third closest. I'm officially the closest.
motion,
Clarify though, the helium is actually not, it's an inert gas, so it won't combine. Unlike
Is that the gas that you breathe in and you speak funny words in?
That's the one.
I was gonna make a comment about your accent, but I didn't want to.
We couldn't go there, just couldn't.
If Pete starts coming to the meetings.
Okay,
You hang around with some of those guys and you'll be there too.
Just at the ridge, if he comes with a high-pitched voice, we'll know why.
Do you wanna read it off, man? Peter's done, I'll read it off, you got the, I'm pulling right over there.
Petition 11?
motion to
Yeah.
close.
Have a motion, any other commentators out there? Nope, we're looking good.
Who made the motion to close?
Motion to close the,
I'll make a motion to close
I'll second
public
it.
hearing.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Ayes have it. What are we doing now?
Motion to approve, motion to approve, and in my comments to you,
Right.
and it's kind of redundant because they don't have any choice, but I would ask that if there is a motion to approve, that it be subject to the requirements of the
That goes out.
regulation as it's stated in my memo.
Okay. Got that, Alan?
Yep. This is, where we at, petition 2019-10. Pure Vita Labs LLC, seeking a special use permit for a medical laboratory analytical testing laboratory for state mandated regulatory testing of hemp and cannabis sold at the state compassion centers. As our council has recommended, make a motion to approve with the stipulation that the applicant comply with all requirements of the Department of Health as it pertains to state laboratory testing of sampling and testing medical marijuana.
I'll put in the
Right.
citation.
Second.
Discussion? We're ready to vote.
Dick Howson?
Yes.
Alan Clark?
No.
Michael McPhillips?
Yes.
Justin Kluter?
Yes.
And Richard Nix?
yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Tom?
Barbecue, you guys have plenty of land for barbecue out there.
Absolutely. Al, can you just hit that button?
Are we adjourned?
Are we adjourned? We haven't done that yet, right?
So moved.
Tracy, can you stop that, please?
Seconded.
Tom, wait a minute.
All in favor?
All in favor?